Now, this has to do with, if we take a step back, some aspects of Western spirituality which are possibly under-talked about. The first is that Western spirituality is actually a power-sharing curriculum. It is Advent here, and my kids and I and my wife have been working through some of the typical stories, Zachariah and Elizabeth and Joseph and Mary. And we use a little app called Lectio 365. I think it's a special one for families so that our kids understand. And we're invited to do little exercises that are related to the stories and little memory verses, just little bits of spiritual disciplines, and the kids don't really know that. But we're invited to do a little Lectio Divina, which means a kind of Holy Spirit guided reading of the text, and look for words that stand out to us. Now, the first word that really stood out to me is the word impotent. And, Zachariah and Elizabeth are described as impotent. And then the next one that stood out to me is old, perhaps because I'm got sort of gray hairs now and don't think of myself as exactly so young anymore. And the third word that stood out again is virgin. Now, these stories are about people having babies, so a lot of these things are kind of relevant. But what they all have in common is impotence in a more general sense, a more Latin sense of not having power. Impotent meaning sort of lacking power. And perhaps that stands out to me because I often have the feeling that I just don't have the power to do what I'm supposed to do or feel like I should do and all of that. And I know a lot of other people have that sort of feeling as well. So I guess what I am learning this Advent is that Western spirituality, or what I've also called the spirituality of Christmas or Jesus' spirituality, is a spirituality for the impotent or for the old or for virgins. It's a spirituality for those who simply lack the power to do either what they're supposed to do or to be who they're supposed to be, or just to get through life. That's what Western spirituality is about. So, hey everybody, I am Michael Stewart Robb here, and this is the Sanctus Forum, and we are doing Pensies here. That means books and everyday spirituality. This is just another one of those, and there's a Pensies that's recently gone up. I hope that people have seen it, and we were trying to give away these books, and this is my brand new copy, Dallas Willard's Renovation of the Heart. So check out that video. I think it's titled If You Lack Focus, and there still is time to win a copy of these for either yourself or for your friends. So go check out that video for the details, which I'll give to you as well. It's a particular post that you have to tag 5 friends on, and you have to sign up for the Sanctus newsletter at sanctus.institute and follow us on Instagram, which is where you have to tag your friends in a post. So I have been talking in these Pensies at the end of the year about Western spirituality and its connection to evangelism, which isn't really going to go away. And I've said a couple things that really help me, and one is that evangelism happens all the time, so you don't have to worry about it being some sort of special thing that people who practice Western spirituality do to just annoy people. And then the other thing is that conversion happens all the time. People change their mind about things, people change their way of life. It's just kind of part of the human condition. And despite that happening, evangelism is not the same thing as participating in somebody's conversion. There's been a few videos I've talked about the importance of seeking reform for ourselves, and that being really at the heart of Western spirituality. Then I've talked about the importance of friends and how Western spirituality is a relational kind of thing. And then we've talked about teaching, which is kind of a strange part of Western spirituality. It's not something we usually think of in connection with evangelism, but it's very, very important because Western spirituality is a knowledge-based kind of thing. It's based on studying reality. And today, next video, and I've got one more in mind, is going to be about power. And I have been reading this book called Power Evangelism. Let's make sure it focuses. There we go. By John Wimber. Now, in Munich, where I live, I attend a Vineyard church. It's a German-speaking Vineyard church, and John Wimber, I guess, is the founder or maybe one of the founders, and this book, Power Evangelism, is kind of like one of those books which, certain groups have the books that kind of kick them off, that sort of was there at the founding of their group or movement. So for the Benedictines, there's the Rule of Saint Benedict. For the Jesuits, or more broadly Ignatian spirituality, there is Ignatius's Spiritual Exercises. For the Reformed Calvinists, there's the Christian Institutes, the Institutes of the Christian Religion. And for the Quakers, there is the Journal of George Fox. And if Vineyard has a book, I guess it's going to be this one by John Wimber. I've never read it, but I'm reading it now, and it's good. A lot of it I actually already knew because I've spent enough time with these folks, and it's not a difficult book. Very easy. Lots of stories. Good. Kind of lots of stuff out of the Bible, which was very important for John Wimber. What he basically wants to say is evangelism isn't just about speaking or just about sort of displays of character and this sort of transformation that happens in people as a part of practicing Western spirituality. He wants to say that there are times when God acts in power, supernatural power, if you wish, and that serves as a kind of arrow pointing to Jesus, pointing to God, and saying, hey, take this seriously. Now, this has to do with, if we take a step back, some aspects of Western spirituality which are possibly under-talked about. The first is that Western spirituality is actually a power-sharing curriculum. I'm not a big fan of superhero films, but somebody last night was trying to convince me that, in a sense, what they're showing us is human potential. They're trying to show aspects of human life, but on a sort of blown-up scale. Saints was actually the word that was thrown around. The interesting thing, however, about these films or the comic books is they don't often present a path for normal people, us, to become like the superhero. They're kind of set apart, which relieves us of the burden of actually becoming any different than we actually are. And that's where Western spirituality is different. It's one of its offers to humanity is to say, hey, how would you like to have some more power? And how would you like to learn from Jesus or learn from his friends how to live in your context with more ability than you currently have? So think about that. That's the first one. The second thing that these sort of acts of power can do is point out that God is powerful, and God is powerful love, to be more specific. A lot of people are under the power of something that's totally bigger than them, and they don't really know, like, the verse that I'm learning now. I'm memorizing Psalm 62, and there's this line, it's almost the main reason why I'm learning it. All power belongs to God. Psalm 62. I don't know the actual verse. They don't know that. They don't know that all power belongs to God, and so they are under the power of something that's totally controlling them. It might be something inside of them. It might be something that's outside of them. And what can happen is that somebody who works with Jesus, works with the Holy Spirit, and in this sort of power sharing thing can come along, and they can sort of show through their actions, through some sort of act of power, that, hey, there is a God who is powerful, even all-powerful, and who can free people from certain things that they are under the power of, or at least just give people the message that God's got power, and he uses his power exclusively for the purpose of loving us and loving creation. Well, that is what I've got today, and make sure that you subscribe and like these videos if you do like them a teensy bit, like them if you don't even like them, but go over to Sanctus Institute to sign up for our almost monthly newsletter. That is by far the best way of keeping in contact with us. And check back next week, and we'll have the last video in this series on Western spirituality and evangelism, the shadow side of spirituality. Gotta stop talking now. Bye.